Great. Well, welcome to this week's Stay Connected webinar. We really appreciate that you are taking the time to join us today, and we're excited about our speaker and the resources he's able to share. Today we have Jack Hilger, who is the Conservation Education Assistant with the Nebraska Forest Service. And I know all of you are really interested in resources that help you get the children and youth you work with outdoors and help you be better prepared to lead your various initiatives in your programs. Take it away, and if everyone wants to introduce themselves in the chat, and Jack said at any time if you want to interject to ask questions or share resources, just to feel free to go ahead and do that. So thanks, Jack, for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Kim, for inviting me to come and kind of chat a little bit about what we have to offer from the Nebraska Forest Service. I, like Kim mentioned just a second ago, if you have any questions throughout, feel free to either unmute yourself and interject, or if you'd like to put something in the chat as well. I will try my best to take a look, keep an eye on the chat, but I'm sure Kim can kind of interrupt me too if there's any questions that come up that I miss going through things. Once I tend to get talking, I tend to talk a little quickly, but do feel free to interject or anything as we go. I'm always happy for more discussion when we kind of give our presentations. So with that, I will get started. So today I decided to title today's talk on keeping conservation in the COVID-19 classroom. So just a little bit of, there we go. A little bit of background about myself. My name's Jack Hilgert. I'm the Conservation Education Assistant for the Nebraska Forest Service. And I'm the Project Learning Tree and Project WET State Co-Coordinator with my supervisor, Hannah Pineo, through the Nebraska Forest Service. Project Learning Tree and Project WET, which we will talk about a little bit later in the presentation, are two internationally used, nationally award-winning, recognized environmental education curriculums that focus on connecting students and educators with natural resources. I started at the Nebraska Forest Service just in May, but I've been doing environmental education for a long time, actually. I got my start as a youth volunteer at the Omaha Zoo in 5th grade. So I've been doing some sort of volunteer or paid work with environmental education for a few years, although I still know I have a lot to learn. I just graduated in May before starting for NFS with a Bachelor's of Science in Fisheries and Wildlife, with my emphases in zoo animal care and conservation biology, and then minors in biological sciences, business administration, and environmental education. And I had volunteered and then eventually got hired on to work at the Omaha Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium. I also, during college, interned at the Lincoln Children's Zoo, the Little Riverside Discovery Center and Zoo in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, and the Sunset Zoo in Manhattan, Kansas. So I've had a wide variety of different environmental education experiences that I hope to kind of bring to my position and also help bring to you all as we help marry our resources from the Nebraska Forest Service with your needs. Just as a refresher, the Nebraska Forest Service, or for those of you who may not be as familiar with our agency, is a university affiliate through the Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And our mission is to enrich the lives of all Nebraskans by protecting, restoring, and utilizing Nebraska's tree and forest resources. So to guide our kind of presentation today, I thought that there were 3 essential questions that we should answer. First, And always, why is conservation and environmental education important? How can we continue to provide quality environmental education experiences during COVID-19? And how can the Nebraska Forest Service help provide you the resources that you need? So as we get started, to kind of answer that first question, I have a fun little experiment of sorts. As I click through this slide, if you recognize the picture, or you can either shout it out in unmuting yourself or put it in the Zoom chat, naming who are these people or characters. Yeah, so we've got I think all the right answers in the chat today. So they're, Bugs Bunny, SpongeBob, George Clooney, Harry and Meghan, the Harry Potter characters, Mickey Mouse. All of these are pretty universally recognizable images or characters. But let's see how many of these that you can get on this next slide. So I've seen some good answers in the chat to kind of walk through this one more specifically. On the left-hand side, we have our red-tailed hawk. And on the lower left-hand side, we have a Cope's gray tree frog. If you ever have like a tree frog on the side of your house in Nebraska, or outside your door, that's probably the tree frog that's saying hello and taking a visit. We have our black-footed ferret in the back there, and in front of him in the center, we have our white-tailed deer family. On the upper right-hand corner, we have an American sycamore. You can tell it's always hard to find really good tree pictures that you can easily ID, but the giveaway with this one is that mottled looking bark with that exfoliation of between the white and the tannish gray. They're kind of our big trees that you might see in like a city park. And they naturally occur in the southeastern half of the state, especially down by Indian Cave State Park. And then this is a downy woodpecker. I think I did see some people get this one right too, on the exact species name. So good job for that. Kudos to you. So why are these important? I guess why does that matter? Why does Pokemon matter? So there was a study done. I have the citation down in the corner, that young children actually have a tremendous capacity for learning about creatures and living things. They did a study in Britain with Pokemon cards, actually, that at the age of 8, children were able to identify and memorize nearly 80% of Pokemon out of a sample deck of 150 synthetic species, or just Pokemon. So they could get 80% of them right, at the drop of a hat out of the 150 that they did in this study with children in Britain. So although some of us adults especially might be able to get the species on the previous slide right, it would appear, especially if we ask some of our elementary schoolers or even middle schoolers or high schoolers, that previous slide may not be able to get all of those species right, and they're much more likely to see a downy woodpecker or a Cope's gray tree frog in their day-to-day life here in Nebraska than to see a Pikachu or George Clooney. um, and what also makes environmental education important? Environmental education has a lot of great impacts on students and their health and well-being. Nature and exposure to nature significantly reduces blood pressure, stress levels through cortisol. It decreases your heart rate. And even in some longitudinal studies show that it can decrease the incidence of diabetes. And the association of exposure between green space and health outcomes is even stronger for those of lower socioeconomic statuses. So as we serve those students who are of, are less privileged groups, this can even have better impacts for them in the long term. It also has great impacts on our mental health. I think everybody right now with COVID-19 has experienced, being cooped up inside and really appreciates those moments, where you may go on a neighborhood walk outside your house or your apartment, or even take a trip to a park, or even take a bigger trek to a state park or a federally protected land like a national forest or a national park. Access to nature promotes attention to your own restoration and almost meditative qualities of that mental reset. It can increase your capacity for memory, help with mental competence, helps create supportive social groups. So especially during this time of COVID-19, we can't all gather inside indoor spaces, but these outdoor spaces like our parks, and even state parks, things of that nature, where we can connect with natural resources, are places that we can still connect with those in our local communities, while still staying safe and socially distant. And it also can help with self-discipline. Access to nature helps moderate stress and can even improve behaviors and symptoms of ADHD. So there's some of the studies I put in the bottom here, and I'll send Kim the PowerPoint after the fact too, if you would like more of the research on this. But there's a lot of different research that shows not only the benefits of of going outside for students as an enriching experience with their curricula, but also as a great experience for their physical and mental well-beings. And finally, environmental education is important because it connects people to nature and makes them want to do something. Does anyone know what this picture is on the left-hand side of my screen? You can either put that in the chat or shout out, unmute yourself. Oh yes, Dakota got it right. Yes, a piping plover. So here in Nebraska, piping plovers are just one of the several, I have kind of the spreadsheet on the right-hand side of the screen, threatened and endangered species that live in our state. So one thing with environmental education that we tend to do, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but something that we can tend to try and overcome, is that if you ask the student to draw a picture of an endangered species, or a threatened species, something that's going extinct, what would come to mind? Probably a tiger or a panda or an elephant thing, or, a penguin or a polar bear. And although those are great things and great animals, that we can do things to help conserve and protect, we have endangered and threatened species that live in our own backyards here in Nebraska and in our communities. And so again, there might be more meaning by connecting our students to their place-based resources and our local flora and fauna than just teaching them in environmental education through a framework of tropical rainforests or far, on the other side of the earth, or, the African savanna, which are still places that we should teach about. But the likelihood of some of our students ever seeing those habitats and seeing those animals in their native spaces compared to the piping plover or the flying squirrel, things of that nature, again, is something that we can strive to do to really connect our students with their local resources. And finally, more of a career, especially for middle school. And as we talk about STEM education, we should think of the environmental education as a key component when thinking of green jobs. So green jobs have grown by over 250% in the last decade alone. In 2017, there were over 9.8 million green jobs. So in the sustainability and green energy sectors. And it's estimated by 2030, there will be an additional 15 to 60 million green jobs in our nation's economy. And so as we view education also as that pre-professional component of giving our students life skills and preparing them for the future, this is a future landscape of their professional landscape that environmental education is preparing them for. So what does this mean for you? It's our responsibility as educators to inspire interest in environmental education and the outdoors. And it's our responsibility as educators to give these children a variety of environmental education experiences. So there have been, of course, with everything, impacts with COVID-19 on environmental education. But there is a silver lining, especially in my mind. There is a little bit of a silver lining with the current pandemic. We know from the CDC and from various medical studies out there and medical professionals that community spread of COVID-19 is less likely in outdoors when spending time outside. So although our educational landscape looks much different than it did six to 8 to 12 months ago, and it will still look different 6 to 8 to 12 to even 24 months into the future, just having that simple time to go and do a lesson outside or try and find an environmental education lesson to do an activity outside, and thinking of time to spend outside is reinforced in our education system now, because taking our students outside makes them less susceptible for that community spread aspect. Students and educators are also getting, our Zoom fatigue, quote unquote. I think we've all read the headlines or even talked to our own friends and family that are educators, that everyone's getting tired of our technology. And so the more ways that we can use environmental education as a way to have either at-home learners do an activity by themselves, with a parent, or, but they have to go outside and do the activity. Or if we're still having students in our classrooms or educational spaces, spending that time to turn off our technology and go outside, and get that sense of normalcy back through environmental education is a great opportunity. We really should strive to still provide the same or similar pre-COVID educational experiences to our students. I know that a lot of districts and programs, aren't allowing field trips or this, that, or the other is drastically changed, but we still can find ways through environmental education to replicate those experiences. So that way students, aren't just missing out on key cornerstone moments of their academic year. And finally, some research that we've received through Project WET especially said that this summer that educators are really looking for environmental education. But right now, with everything going on, we want to make sure that environmental education ties to standards or core components of our education programming. A lot of times in years past, environmental education and outdoor education style programs were seen as supplementary and enrichment. So something on top of the standards, of going above and beyond what our requirements on our teachers or educators are. And so going forward, especially during the pandemic, the more that we can tie our programming to the standards that, the meat and bones, the meat and potatoes that our educators are trying to meet, the more successful we can be in getting our environmental education programming off the ground and still a part of the COVID-19 classroom. So Project Learning Tree and Project WET, again, are the two curricula that we are the state coordinating agency for. And so we have a few upcoming workshops. We're calling them mini workshops because they're just 90 minutes long. Our first one is on Wednesday, November 11th on community trees. It's on just a 3-lesson mini unit from Project Learning Tree that just came out called Discover Your Urban Forest. It's a little, I put the cover on here with the little goldfinch on the front. It will cost only $5 to sign up if you're looking for some environmental education, professional development. It's a great 90 minutes to get some professional development, learn about some new lessons from Project Learning Tree, and get these new resources for that middle school grade band. There's also a new unit called Sensational Trees that just came out. And so we're going to have a seasonal Sensational Trees workshop. And that workshop and that curricula is focused on grades K2, that early elementary grade band, Wednesday, December 2nd, another mini workshop style 90 minutes, only $5 to get the 3-lesson mini unit curricula. And I have the Go links where you can find more information and details about those workshops. Yes, these are, so we had pivoting our programming for COVID-19. We were attempting to do some longer and larger Zoom workshops, but those were just not as attractive to our educators right now, which makes sense. No one wants to sign up for an additional 4 to 6 hours on Zoom. But I think these are much more attractive. I just rolled out these workshops last week, and I already have, I think, 8 educators signed up for the Community Trees workshop in the past week alone. So we're more than happy to kind of continue to explore this mini workshop style going forward into 2021 as well. We're also, besides providing that professional development on Project WET and Project Learning Tree, I've created a series of virtual classroom visits that we will provide via Zoom for any Nebraska educator for free. So either if you're a teacher, I know that we have lots of like after school programming, people who are also affiliated or, who might be watching today, they would count as well through our agency. Because normally when we would offer in-person classroom visits, when we offer in-person classroom visits, thanks for putting the links in the chat there. We do those for free in person. And I know a lot of programs are not allowing in-person visitors or, in-person classroom visits. And so, or field trips, we also offer field trips normally. And so we would offer these for free. So I have a handout that I will send along to Kim to kind of put with our recording maybe, or just send along to you folks. But I basically put together lessons targeting a tree track of lessons, a water track of lessons, and a climate track of lessons with one lesson per grade band. So 3 lessons on early childhood, 3 from K2 grade band, 3 for 3-5, 3 for 6-8, and 3 for 9-12. And I will pop out of my presentation here actually to just show that flyer. Here we are. If it helps. So these are all based off of our Project Learning Tree and Project WET curricula that Hannah and I already have had access to as state coordinators, and that we provide professional development on, but we could basically lead a Project Learning Tree, Project WET lesson with your students via Zoom. The main thing you just have to do as an educator is send us an email. I have my email on the flyer here and in our presentation. It's just jack.hilgert@unl.edu. And we would have to set up a time with the educator who is interested and maybe talk through a few things. Some of these lessons do require a few materials like household materials, like a glass of water, things like that for the teacher kind of to lead through a demonstration with us, but we would guide the class through the activity with us teaching, and then the teacher or other educator in the class guiding the students through the lesson as well, for that in-person aspect. With that, that kind of brings me to the end of our presentation. I have my contact information here on the slide. You can find out more about our agency at our website, nfs.unl.edu, and or send me an email, jack.hilgert@unl.edu. But does anyone have any questions on anything I went over today? I hope we kind of answered those essential questions of why is environmental education important, some of the opportunities that have come about because of COVID, and to keep environmental education in our Nebraska classrooms, and even kind of augment our day-to-day educational programming with environmental education. And then finally, some of our upcoming offerings through our upcoming mini workshop series, and then the virtual classroom visits that we're offering this fall.
Does anybody have any questions?
Hey, Jack, Sandy and Kent Day. We don't have any questions, but we just wanted to say we really appreciate this information. This is great. This is going to help so many kids, not only in Omaha and Lincoln for Kent's programs, but from Beyond School Bells perspective that are clear across the state. This is just exactly what we need right now, and we just can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. Yes, and if there's anything else that I could do, or if there's something else, with a particular program that you'd like to set up a meeting, or work on a specific project, just feel free to send me an email. Like I've said throughout the presentation, I guess I'm very open to the whole collaboration aspect, and kind of discussing how we can help take our materials and our what we have from Project Learning Tree, Project WET, and even our forestry materials from the Nebraska Forest Service, and help really serve all Nebraskans all across the state. So
Very generous. And go ahead, Dakota.
I was just gonna say, I agree. I did have a question. So my aunt actually used to be a science teacher in Colorado, and she gave me some of her old curriculum books, including, I don't know if there was a Project WET, but there was definitely Project WILD, and a couple of other things like that. And one of my challenges right now with COVID and outdoor education is thinking about how we can still get kids outside during the winter, and finding programming that is still engaging, but maybe not, freezing cold, and finding a balance there. So I was just wondering if there are sort of winter variations in the Project WET kind of curriculum and activities that you have, or if you have anything kind of in that regard that we could partner on, things like that.
Certainly. So in years past, my supervisor actually would run a professional development series in the winter called Winter Wonderland. She used to run. We're probably not going to run it as the same thing this year just because of COVID and everything else. But she would do like a full day workshop on our early childhood education curricula from Project Learning Tree and Project WET. That was focused on still continuing to get kids outside in the winter. So there are, depending upon the curriculum book, of course, I guess, because I probably have, between the two different curricula that we coordinate, there's probably like a dozen books and probably like 300 some lessons. So there's some good, there are good lessons, I think, in each of the guides that you can easily translate into a cold weather learning experience, or a socially distanced learning experience. It's just some of it, and some of them are very well written. I'm thinking of one, there's like a painting with pine needles activity, I know, in our PLT early childhood activity guide that's really good for like winter time with early childhood, where they go out and could like go on a nature walk, and have the students like pick pine needles out, and then go back to the classroom and use them as like a paintbrush to paint their own pine trees and things. That's just one that comes to mind. So there's some good resources out there. And if you're more interested in kind of looking through the books and things, because there's just a lot of resources I know in the guides, we can of course have that more conversation of trying to pick things out.
I appreciate that. I'll reach out to you for sure about that. And I'm interested if there is that Winter Wonderland, a variation this year.
Yes. I'm planning with our like seasonal sensational trees workshop. I just love alliteration. So I'll pull up that site here. I guess I have that pulled up. So this is this workshop here. And if you just go to our NFS webpage or those Go links I had in the presentation, you can register. But this one is I'm planning this is our focus is the curricula is the new early elementary curricula guide mini like thematic unit. There we go. That's what they're calling it from Project Learning Tree. But I'm planning to kind of frame this workshop in December specifically on that question that you had, like focusing on connecting that resource with getting kids outside and learning outside during the winter.
Great, I will sign up for that. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
So, and we can of course, if this is really popular and things like of that nature, I'm more than happy to like explore more workshop styles or offerings. I think that if we frame all of the current situation as more opportunities to find new ways to reach our audiences, we can, think of things with a little bit more positive mindset than just thinking that everything has to be canceled or whatever. So we may not be able to do our full day in-person workshop this year, but we can still do some of these smaller workshops remotely that still kind of get those materials in our educators' hands.
I appreciate that.
Well, you have been really generous with the information and these workshops you've created and the opportunities, especially to connect with students in an after-school program and kind of help walk staff through some of those activities with students. That's a great learning opportunity. So, and we will certainly help spread the word about your $5 workshops. I think focusing on those winter outdoor activities, that'll be really great information for our programs after school.
Mm-hmm. I guess one thing too to note on with this is that I guess a little bit of a change with Project Learning Tree going forward is that they are planning to roll out our, in the past, I guess, and still right now, all of the Project Learning Tree materials, you had to attend a workshop in order to receive the materials. However, coming into 2021, they plan to actually allow educators to purchase the materials without a professional development workshop being a requirement. And so as I know, we have a lot of different program managers and things across the state for after school clubs and programs. If this is something where you would like to purchase a guide and see if a workshop experience that we could help provide your educators a more targeted workshop, we could work with those managers on that. But that might be a great way once those roll out and those changes kind of come to us January and moving forward, that you guys can kind of get a good sampling of the guides without having to sign up or commit to so many hours of professional development and things of those natures. So we don't have a lot of details on what this looks like yet, but that was something I definitely wanted to briefly mention. So.
Well, this is always really important, outdoor education, appreciating the outdoors and nature and our environment is always important, but I think now more than ever, people are always looking for these great opportunities across all grade levels. So thank you, Jack, so much. And yeah, any information you want us to share, just go ahead and send, and we'll put it on the Stay Connected website with the recording of this webinar and help you spread the word.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for those of you who joined today, and thank you, I guess, in advance to those who hopefully watch the recording. Like I said before, I guess if there's any, if anyone has any, specific needs or concerns, or just wants to have a conversation about thinking through, specific activities in environmental education with social distancing or this, that, or the other right now, through our connections, through our national networks of Project WET and Project Learning Tree, we've gotten a lot of resources here and there, or, just email conversations between fellow state coordinators about how to adapt this, that, or the other. And so I'm more than happy to have those conversations to kind of help guide you all who are doing the good work of educating our students every day through some of those these problems that might be more specific to your program or your facility. So
We really appreciate that, Jack. Thank you. It's nice to be able to work with you. We will stay in touch, definitely. And thanks to those of you who joined today. Next Thursday Stay Connected webinar will be with LaRon Henderson with Collective for Youth. And he is going to take us back to the audiobook provided at the Get Connected conference and lead a book talk, either get you interested in reading the book, or if you've read the book, get engaged in some interesting conversations around the other Wes Moore book. So thanks to everybody for joining. Thanks, Jack. We appreciate it. And we'll get those resources that you've shared on the Stay Connected site, along with information about registering for your workshops.
awesome. Well, thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.